Right, hello family and friends. Hello family and friends. Let's go straight back in. So, Robespierre on the rights of societies and clubs, 29th of September 1791. Infiltration. All bases are covered. Organizations, unions, NGOs. There's like just very few people left. You know, there's any big organization, you can be sure it's infiltrated somehow. I mean, look at Jeremy Corbyn, your party. It's just like sabotage, like right from the beginning, before they even get off the ground. Oh man. It's just ridiculous. So, the societies and clubs, they used to be on point. They used to watch. They used to hold people to account. And that's the whole reason for infiltration. Covering all bases. So let's finish this up. This is really powerful stuff, man. So, on the rights of societies and clubs. Le Chapelier presented a report to the Assembly which aimed at limiting the political activity of the clubs, which was considered a competing force. Robespierre opposed this orientation and defended the club's rights. Despite his intervention, the Assembly adopted the first articles of the report. The revolution is over. I do want to suppose so with you, even if I do not fully understand the meaning that you attach to that statement, which I have heard repeated with great affectation. But if the hypothesis is correct, is it then less necessary to propagate the knowledge, the principles of the Constitution and of public spiritedness, without which the Constitution cannot subsist? Is it less useful to form assemblies in which the citizens can consider in common the most effective way of approaching such objectives and the most precious interests of their homeland? Is there any concern more legitimate and more worthy of a free people? For it to be true to say that the revolution is over, the Constitution would need to have been consolidated, since the collapse and weakening of the Constitution must necessarily prolong the revolution, which is nothing other than the nation's efforts to retain or acquire liberty. Now, how can anyone propose to nullify and render ineffectual the most powerful means of strengthening it? One that a rapporteur himself admits to have been generally recognized as necessary. Where does it come from, this strange haste to remove all the props supporting an edifice that is still poorly buttressed? What is this scheme to try and plunge a nation deep into inertia concerning the most sacred of its interests? To forbid the to forbid the citizens to have any sort of anxieties when everything suggests that it is still demented to have some, to treat as criminal the watchfulness that reason imposes on peoples that have enjoyed liberty for centuries past. To me, when I see, on one hand, that the nascent constitution still has internal and external enemies, when I see that the talk and the external signs have changed, but the actions are still the same, and hearts can only have changed through a miracle. When I see intrigue, duplicity, sounding the alarm, and at the same time sowing trouble and discord, when I see the heads of opposing factions fighting less for the revolutionary cause than to encroach on the power to rule under the name of monarchs. When on the other hand, I see the exaggerated zeal with which they prescribe blind obedience, at the same time as prescribing even the word liberty, and see the extraordinary means they use to kill public spiritedness by reviving prejudice, frivolity, idolatry, far from condemning those around me for the drunken spirit that animates them. I see it only as a spirit of vertigo propagated by the slavery of nations and the despotism of tyrants. Applause. If those who share the cares of legislators are regarded as dangerous men, if I am not convinced that people who think like that are senseless, imbecilic, I am forced to see them as traitors. If I must stop speaking out against the plans of enemies of the homeland, if I must applaud the ruin of my country, give me any orders you want, and let me perish before the loss of liberty. Applause, murmurs. As well, there will still be men in France who are sincere enough friends of liberty, perspective enough to detect all the traps set for us on all sides, to prevent traitors from ever enjoying the fruits of their efforts. I know that to ensure the success of projects today being offered for our deliberation, care was taken to lavish criticisms, sophistries, calumnies, slanders, and all the small means employed by small men who are both the shame and the curse of revolutions. Applause, laughter in the centre. I know they have coveted to their opinions everything France has that is nasty and foolish. Laughter. I know that projects of this sort are very pleasing to all men interested in prevaricating with impunity. For any man who can be corrupted fears the scrutiny of informed citizens, as brigands fear the light that exposes their crimes. I know that projects of this sort are very pleasing to all men interested in evading and concealing with impunity. For any man who can be corrupted fears the scrutiny of informed citizens, as brigands fear the light that exposes their crimes. Nothing but virtue can foil this sort of conspiracy against patriotic societies. Nothing but virtue can foil this sort of conspiracy against patriotic societies. It has to be about the people. It has to be about what's right. You can't have God-fearing people in these places. True God-fearing people. People can pretend. But when it's real, it's evident. Nothing but virtue can foil this sort of conspiracy against the patriotic societies. Destroy them, and you will have removed the most powerful brake on corruption. You will have overturned the last obstacle standing in the way of these sinister plans. Every broken country, empires that have fallen, all of them had enemies within. Now, people want to think immediately, oh, immigrants. No, it's not as simple as that. People who come in, they work their way to the top. People who come in with riches, industry, investment. People who give party donations. There's no such thing as a free lunch. They always want something. back in old times, it was always people who wanted to invite other nations, Western civilizations, their ideas. They wanted to share cultures with them. And little did they know, these people did not have their best interest. It was reconnaissance basically. And then they came in war, and they came in and destroyed the place. They stole, they killed, they destroyed. Now, those people who invited them in, they did genuinely think they were friendly. I'm just using the West as an example because it's all throughout history. Colonialism, the conquering, everything. People worked with them within that. Now, people who have done this, the West, understanding that they know they've done this throughout the centuries, up until this day, they know the tricks of infiltration, the mind games, the whispering, the secrets, the spying. They know all this. So to do that today, it's not possible without actually having enemies within, people in power. It's just not possible without that. It just isn't. Knowing there's all these agencies, MI6, and but we'll get there. You will have overturned the last obstacle standing in the way of these sinister plans. For the conspirators, the plotters, the ambitious will be perfectly capable of assembling, will be well able to elude the law they have pronounced. They will know how to rally under the auspices of despotism to reign in its name. And they will be rid of the societies of free men who assemble peaceably and publicly under common rights, because it is necessary for surveillance by honest people to stand against the forces of ambitious and corrupt intriguers. Silky Carlo, she's like, look guys, we know you're up to something. What's going on? And then the whole gaslighting campaign starts, Oh, it's for safety, convenience, terrorists, blah, 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 blah. But it's not long before we find out. Look at social media. We all know that's a tool for government surveillance now. But when it first came out, we had no idea. It was great, Mark Zuckerberg is linking all these college students together. And then the government just infiltrates it. It's a wonderful idea. And then look what America are doing today. Look at their plans for people migrating to America. They have to give they're planning for people to give their full social media presence and all their contacts and all their digital information under the guise of safety and protection of our rights and our freedoms and our way of life. You've heard it over and over, decade after decade. And they will be rid of the societies of free men who assemble peaceably and publicly under common rights, because it is necessary for surveillance by honest people to stand against the forces of ambitious and corrupt intriguers. Then they will be able to tear the country apart with impunity and cultivate their personal ambition on the ruins of the nation. Gentlemen, if circumstances from the past could now be recalled to your minds in a clear manner, You will remember that these societies are composed of men who were most commendable for their talents, their zeal for the liberty they have conquered. They met in them to prepare in advance to fight in this very assembly against the League of Enemies of the Revolution, to learn how to foil the traps that plotters have been setting for us until this very moment. If you remember all the circumstances, you will see with much surprise as pain that this decree is perhaps instigated by the personal insult that was offered to certain individuals who had acquired too much influence over the public opinion that now rejects them. It is then such a great misfortune if in our present circumstances public opinion and public spirit are developing at the expense of a few men who served the cause of the homeland in appearance, only to betray it with greater boldness. Applause, murmurs. It is then such a great misfortune if in our present circumstances public opinion and public spirit are developing at the expense of a few men who served the cause of the homeland in appearance, only to betray it with greater boldness. Reform. I know just how harsh my frankness is, but the only consolation left to good citizens for the danger in which these men have put the state is to judge them in a severe manner. Vote reform, please. Put Nigel Farage in power, otherwise he's always going to be lurking. The people need to see. He's always going to be lurking in the background. Just put him in power. If I had the choice, I'd put him in power tomorrow. Just so the people can see. Just so they can see for themselves. In all honesty, Zach Polanski should get a chance. But, I don't believe in politics, It's all about contracts and friends and opportunities, knowing where the money's flowing. I know just how harsh my frankness is, but the only consolation left to good citizens for the danger in which these men have put the state is to judge them in a severe manner. The patriotic societies have been represented to you as having usurped public power, when really they have never had the ridiculous aspiration to interfere with the constituted authorities, when really they have never had any goal but to inform, to enlighten their fellow citizens on the true principles of the Constitution, and to spread the enlightenment without which it cannot survive. If some societies have strayed from the rules prescribed by the law, well, the law is there to repress those particular departures. But do we wish to infer from a few isolated acts for which no proof has been given the conclusion that is necessary to destroy, paralyze, annihilate entirely an institution useful in itself, needed for the maintenance of the Constitution, and which, even as its enemies admit, has rendered essential services to liberty? If there is a hideous spectacle, it is that of a representative assembly willing to sacrifice the security of the Constitution to the interests of a few individuals devoured by passions and ambition. I limit myself to asking the preliminary question about the committee's proposal, and I leave to those who wish to oppose my opinion the task of refuting me with wonderfully ingenious jokes and Machiavellian artistry. Applause from the left and the public galleries. Told you the guy was just too gangster. Like, it's just so funny. Extracts from the war. Extracts on war, shall I say. This is so serious, and like I said, so relevant and perfect timing. January 2nd, 1792. Whilst the probability of conflict with other nations seemed to be receding, Brissot, the leader of the Brisotins, Girondins, intervened in the Legislative Assembly in favour of war. On the 29th of December, he maintained that the war is necessary to France for her honour. The war is a national benefit. On the 30th of December, he spoke of a crusade of universal liberty. Here, Robespierre replies to Brissot in a speech to the Jacobin Club, which began on the 2nd of January 1792 and was concluded at the session on the 11th of January. So I'm going to just start off the speech from the beginning. Shall we make war or shall we make peace? Shall we attack our enemies or shall we wait for them at home? I believe that this wording does not express the question in all its respects or to its full extent. What position should the nation and its representatives adopt in the circumstances we are in now towards our internal and external enemies? That is the real point of view from which it should be seen. If we want to assimilate it in its entirety and discuss it with all the exactitude it deserves, what matters above all else, and whatever the fruit of our efforts may be, is to enlighten the nation on its true interests and those of its enemies, not to deprive liberty of its last resource by misleading the public mind in the present critical circumstances. I will attempt to meet this objective by responding mainly to the opinion of M. Brissot. Let's get straight to the meat. Before losing yourself in the politics and the states of the princes of Europe, start by turning your gaze to your internal position. Restore order at home before carrying liberty abroad. But you claim that this task should not even concern you, as if the ordinary rules of common sense did not apply to great politicians. Restoring order in our finances, halting the depredations that afflict them, arming the people and the National Guard. Doing all these things this government has tried to prevent so far, so that we may fear neither the attacks of our enemies nor ministerial intrigues reviving through beneficent laws, through a character sustained by energy, dignity and wisdom, the public mind and the horror of tyranny. The only things that can make us invincible against our enemies, all of those are just ridiculous ideas. War, as soon as the court asks for it. That tendency dispenses with all other concerns. You are even with the people the moment you give it war on fugitives from the national court or on German princes. Trust, idolatry for the enemies within. But what am I saying? Do we have them, enemies within? No. You don't know of any. You only know about Koblenz. Koblenz is in Germany, Rhineland region, and it was kind of, they were interested in it for counter-revolutionary purposes. You could say co-conspirators. Did you not tell us that the seat of evil is in Koblenz? So it is not in Paris. So there is no connection between Koblenz and another place not so far from here. What? You dare to say that what has set the revolution back is the fear inspired across the nation by fugitive aristocrats it has always despised? And yet you expect of this nation prodigies of every kind. Learn then that in the judgment of all enlightened Frenchmen, the real Koblenz is in France, that the one in the bishopric of Trier is but one of the supports of a widespread conspiracy being hatched against liberty, and whose home, whose center, whose leaders are among us. If you do not know that, you are a stranger to all that is happening in this country. If you do not know it, why do you deny it? You see, we have this whole immigrants thing. Yes, I'm going there again. The whole of Europe's in it together. You know, and we're running around in circles. You've heard it over the past 10 years. Oh, France borders. Oh, we did a deal with France. And then there was the whole Brexit thing. We could secure our borders, and that didn't work. And each country is arguing about the same thing. And then you get people saying, oh, well, we need the migrants and we should put them to work and blah, blah, blah. But if you've got people who already on benefits, plus you've got disability, PIP, all the whole mental health thing, and now you talk about putting immigrants to work, it doesn't make sense, because also you have the whole AI thing, plus businesses struggling, the small businesses, the high streets closing down. None of it makes sense, does it? It doesn't make sense. But yet, if you do not know that, you are a stranger to all that is happening in this country. And if you do not know it, why do you deny it? Why distract the public attention from our most formidable enemies to fix it on other objects, to lead us into the trap where they are waiting for us? Do you see it yet? Do you get it yet? This will lead up in many videos' time. Why I'm so hard on you guys with this nationalism thing. And we'll get to that as well. Some others who are vividly aware of the depth of our ills and know their true cause are evidently mistaken on the remedy. In a sort of despair, they want to hurl themselves into a foreign war, as if they hoped that the mere change brought about by war would bring us to life, or that order and liberty would eventually emerge from the general confusion. They are committing the most dangerous of errors, for they do not discern the circumstances and confuse ideas that are absolutely distinct. There are, in revolutions there are movements contrary to liberty and movements that favour it. As in illnesses, there are solitary crises and mortal ones. The favourable movements are those aimed directly against tyrants. The favourable movements are those aimed directly against tyrants, like the Americans' insurrection or that of 14th of July, Haiti. But war on the outside, provoked, directed by the government in the circumstances we are now in. But war on the outside, provoked, directed by the government in the circumstances we are now in, is a movement in the wrong direction. A crisis that could lead to the death of the bodily politic. Such a war can only send public opinion off on a false scent, divert the nation's well-founded anxieties and forestall the favourable crisis that attacks by enemies of liberty might have brought on. It was from that angle that I first argued against the drawbacks of this war. During a foreign war, the people, as I said, distracted by military events from political deliberations affecting the essential foundations of its liberty, is less inclined to take seriously the underhand manoeuvres of plotters who are undermining it, and the executive government which is knocking it about, and pay less attention to the weakness or corruption of representatives who are failing to defend it. This policy has been known since the beginning of time. And whatever Embriso might have said, the example I cited of the Roman aristocrats is strikingly relevant. When the people demanded its rights against the usurpations of the Senate and patricians, the Senate would declare war, and the people, forgetting its rights and resentments, would concentrate on nothing but the war, leaving the Senate to its authority and preparing new triumphs for the patricians. War is good for military officers, for the ambitions, for the gamblers who speculate on those sorts of event. Let's go back here, shall we? Because I read this to you before. The one group scenario, except for the Illuminati, has been used effectively to divert your attention away from the truth. It has caused you to fight each other in a manipulation that always leads the real conspiracy closer to its ultimate goal. They got us fighting each other and arguing with each other while they take the next steps towards the ultimate goal. They got us running around in circles voting while they just continue to take the next steps. And we're here waiting another 4 years for change, waiting another 4 years and waiting, and let's vote this guy in, constantly looking for heroes. Fight each other in a manipulation that always leads the real conspiracy closer to its ultimate goal, a new world order. Those of you who believe that Hitler was financed by Jews so that he could murder Jews have a serious logic deficit. The fanatical leftists who tout that it's Nazis behind the conspiracy have ignored the fact that the very wealthy Jews are certainly involved, along with many Catholics, Protestants, communists, atheists, capitalists, Freemasons, all of whom are diametrically opposed to each other, at least on the surface. There are agents of the New World Order everywhere, he said 30 years ago. How much more so today? Where was I? War is good for the military officers, for the ambitious, for the gamblers who speculate on those sorts of events. It is good for ministers whose operations it covers in an unpenetrable, almost sacrosanct veil. It is good for the court. It is good for the executive power, whose authority, whose popularity and ascendancy it augments. It is good for the coalition of nobles, plotters, moderates who govern France. This faction can place its heroes, blind heroes. This faction can place its blind heroes and members at the head of an army. The court can entrust the forces of the state to men who, when the time comes, can serve its interests with greater success, because a sort of reputation for patriotism will have been worked up for them. They will win over the hearts and the trust of the soldiers, only to attach them more strongly to the cause of royalism and moderation. That is the only seduction I fear where the soldiers are concerned. The only seduction I fear where the soldiers are concerned. The soldiers are the people, yet they have to follow orders. They run off to war, they get blown to bits, come back mentally destroyed, come back with limbs blown off. For what? Because these people are now trying to cover their tracks with a war. They can make wars happen like this because they're all in it together. What did I just read from Behold Pale Horse? All these worldwide secret societies. And give your mum a flag and a medal. The only seduction I fear where the soldiers are concerned. For I need no reassurance as to the likelihood of their deserting the public cause openly and voluntarily. The sort of man who would look with horror on the betrayal of the homeland can still be led by adroit, skillful, experienced, clever officers to run its best citizens through with steel. No ordinary men, patriots, love their country. The sort of man who would look with horror on the betrayal of the homeland can still be led by adroit officers to run its best citizens through with steel. Remember, this is what we're thinking about in the future. The loss of jobs. Men will need jobs to feed their families. They're going to become stormtroopers against the people. The perfidious words Republican and agitator, invented by the sect of hypocritical enemies of the Constitution, can turn deceived ignorance against the people's cause. Now, The destruction of the patriotic party is the great objective of all their plots. It is not a counter revolution that I fear. It is the advance of false principles, of idolatry, and the loss of public spirit. We could all rise up and fight together. But we know, us black and browns people, we know it is the advance of false principles, of idolatry. How easy is it to make it a race thing? You got people shimmying up lampposts and putting flags up, walking around wrapped in flags. They have no idea what they're fighting. They have no idea what they're doing, which just leaves the question, are you stupid or are you racist? Or are you being led by these secret societies? Because so many people are trying to educate you, trying to warn you that you're walking into a trap, you're working against the best interest. And that's why I've just adopted this thing, like, let's go home. Let's just all go. And then leave these people to it. Because what happens next? Who can they blame? And that's exactly what's not going to happen. That's exactly one of the main reasons why we're here. First, it's servitude, to do the jobs which they didn't want to do. The second, blame and distraction. It happened with your grandfathers, it happened with your fathers, it's happening now. And you fight the same way and get nowhere. It is not the counter-revolution that I fear. It is the advance of false principles, of idolatry, and the loss of public spirit. Now, do you believe it would be a trivial advantage for the court and the party of which I speak to confine the soldiers, put them in camps, divide them into army corps, isolate them from the citizens, so as to substitute imperceptibly under the imposing names of military discipline and honor, that spirit of blind and absolute obedience, the old military spirit, for the love of liberty, for the popular sentiments that had been maintained by their communication with the people. Although the spirit in the army may still be good in general, should you really conceal from yourselves the fact that intrigue and suggestion have had some success in several corps, and that it is no longer entirely what it was in the first days of the revolution? Do you not fear the system steadily followed for so long, for bringing the army round to a pure love of kings, and for purging it of patriotic spirit, which seems always to have been regarded as a plague that would ravage it? Can you behold without some small anxiety the minister's travels and the nomination of some general famous for disasters involving the more patriotic regiments? This is what I mean. People get caught in these things where you go down in history as a calamity general, when it wasn't necessarily your fault. These people, they need scapegoats for it. Or maybe it was your fault, but they'll keep you and send you to another one. So if possible, it comes out when it comes back to Parliament and people are asking questions. They have fall guys. Do you count for nothing the arbitrary power of life and death with which the law will invest our military patricians from the moment the nation settles on war? Do you count for nothing the police authority that will be given to the military chiefs of all our frontier towns? Have all these facts been answered with a dissertation on the Roman dictatorship? Have all these facts been answered with a dissertation on the Roman dictatorship and the parallel between Caesar and our generals? It has been said that the war would intimidate the aristocrats within and would cut off the source of their operations. Not at all. They know the intentions of their secret friends too well to fear the outcome. What did I just read? They will be the more active in pursuing the veiled war that they can wage on us with impunity, by sowing division, fanaticism, and by corrupting opinion. It's what you need to understand what's coming in the future, people, family, and friends. What's going to happen under the veil of war? How the press is going to be involved, a complete media blackout. The horrors that can happen. They will be more active in pursuing the veiled war. In pursuing the veiled war they can wage on us with impunity by sowing division, fanaticism, and by corrupting opinion. In this, then, that the moderate party, clothed in the liveries of patriotism, whose leaders are the architects of this scheme, will deploy its sinister influence to the full. It is then that in the name of the public security, they will impose silence on anyone who might dare to voice some slight suspicions on the conduct or intentions of the agents of the executive power on which the moderate party is based, of the generals who will have become like it, the hope and the idol of the nation. If one of these generals should happen to achieve some sort of apparent success, which will not, I believe, prove very damaging to the emigrants or deadly to their protectors, what ascendancy will he not provide for his party? What services will he not be able to render the court? It is then that a more serious war will be waged on the true friends of liberty, and that the perfidious system of egoism and intrigue will triumph. Once the public mind has been corrupted, then how far will the executive power and the factions serving it not be able to extend their usurpations? There will be no need to compromise the success of these plans with imprudent haste. Perhaps there will be no hurry to propose the plan of action that has already been discussed. It could be that one or another could be adopted. What can the party not expect from time, from listlessness, ignorance, internal divisions, maneuvers by the executive cohort of its accomplices in the legislative body? In a word, from all the components it has been preparing for so long. This is 100-year plan, over 100-year plan, coming to fruition. It's been tweaked, it's been adapted, it's been updated over the decades with the changing world and technology. Yes, I'm talking about Albert Pike Manifesto. Once you know, you see it. And you can see them all playing towards it. The wind-up merchants. They want us to fight and kill each other. They want to keep their hands clean. From a Bible perspective, I could talk about all these things. From a Bible perspective, this is peace being removed from the earth. They want it to happen within the people. We'll just let it play out. They have been preparing for so long. There's no turning back. Our generals, you say, will betray us, and if we were betrayed, so much the better. I will not tell you that I find this taste for betrayal singular, for I am in perfect agreement with you on that. Yes, our enemies are too adept to betray us openly, as you expect. The kind of betrayal we have to fear, which I have just spelled out to you, that kind does nothing to alert public vigilance. It prolongs the slumber of the people until the moment the shackles go on. That kind leaves no expedient untried. All those who lull the people to sleep favour its success, and take good note that to achieve it, there will not even be any need to make war seriously. Prolongs the slumber of the people until the moment the shackles go on. What have people like me always been constantly talking about? The digital prison. Hunger Games. Two-tier societies. Demolition Man. He didn't know how to use the 3 shells. People underground eating rat burgers. The districts, people working. It's the most realistic scenario, the Hunger Games. The districts. And all the rich and celebrities all living in the capital. And having to ask permission to have a child. Once it's done, it's done. There's no turning back. And that's exactly what the book is leading to. The Antichrist, the mark of the beast. You see, in these times, these are these people who saw it happening. Who saw it happening in their time. And like I've always said before, they study revolutions. They are ready for this. All bases are covered. You can plan all you want, but you're only prolonging the inevitable. That leaves no expedient untried. All those who lull the people to sleep favour its success, and take good note that to achieve it, there will not even be any known need to make war seriously. It is enough to put us on a war footing. It is enough to give us the idea of a foreign war, even if no other advantage was gained from it but the millions being counted in advance. It will not have been wholly wasted effort. Those 20 millions, especially at the present moment, have at least as much value as patriotic address in which confidence and war are preached to the people. I'm discouraging the nation, you say. No, I am enlightening it. To enlighten free men is to awaken their courage. To prevent that courage itself from becoming a stumbling block to their liberty. And if I should turn out to have done nothing more than expose so many traps, than refute so many false ideas and defective principles, than stop outbursts of dangerous enthusiasm, then I will have advanced the public mind and served the homeland. Let me scratch that. Then I would have advanced the public mind and served humanity. Because this is happening everywhere. This is a worldwide agenda. Just concentrating on your race, your country, Europe, the West. You're just being led up the garden path. You're being chased. You'll end up going round in circles. And that's what they want. Stop outbursts of dangerous enthusiasm. It is a worldwide thing. It's us against them. So you see, people have been screaming from the rooftops for a very long time. We don't know, we don't understand history. We can't see it repeating itself, happening over and over again. The man was referencing the Roman Empire, for crying out loud. Everyone's trying to tell you, everyone's trying to show you. Did you watch the BBC documentaries on civilizations, empires and civilizations? That was good. Did you watch David Olusoga's Empire series? The last one was very interesting, especially when he noted how many British people have migrated abroad all throughout time. Recent history, shall I say. British people, Europeans, have always migrated constantly in great numbers. And now they don't like what's happening in the world because, main character syndrome in the West. They're complaining, oh, I'm going to leave. Oh, let's leave. If I could, I'd leave the country. This country's going to shit. This country's going down the tube. I would leave. I would migrate. I would go somewhere else. And the most shocking thing is that you can't see the arrogance and the hypocrisy in that. How all throughout time they've migrated. Even to this day, they're still migrating. Yet, right now, in this day and age, with what's happening, they're complaining about immigration and migrating and have a history of immigration. Shocking. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. And the worst thing about it is you can't see it's your own people doing this to you. They're getting wealthy because of it. This is the rich taking over the world. How do we fight that? Well, nobody wants to do what's necessary. And we're too far in. It's like if you were to suggest that everybody just ditch their smartphones. That's not going to happen, is it? If you were to suggest that everybody call their armies home, no more wars, stop stealing, killing, and destroying. Because at the end of the day, people complain about people coming from broken countries. But yet, when you want to talk about who broke the countries, cognitive dissonance, denial, it's shocking. And then people think you're bonkers for relying in the Bible, for relying on God, when once you get to a certain place, it's the only thing that makes sense. And I find it hilarious in talking to people from a Bible point of view, which nobody wants to hear. Everybody wants to escape. But when you talk to them from a world point of view, okay, there's no God, Jesus isn't coming. Where are we going with this future? Oh, we'll just wait and see. Oh, AI. It's just shocking how we're just sleepwalking right now. But then again, you can't wake people up. If in this day and age, as the Bible says, they are scheduled to be falling asleep right now, to be asleep. Handed over, given over in their strong delusion. What can you do? Time's running out. We're getting to that time where, let the dead bury the dead. But it's going to be very interested to see how all these people who don't have a care in the world right now, they just think that everything's going to work out. They don't have to do nothing. Like I say, the very people who could stop this don't care because they're comfortable. They have no fight to join. They believe in nothing. They will fight for nothing. It's going to be very interesting to see how these people react when the world falls apart, because the Bible's unfolding. Or if there's no Jesus, there's no God. The world falls apart because nations are fighting to take hold of the New World Order. Because what should happen, there should be a peaceful transition of power. The West needs to step down. But when you've been on top for so long, it's impossible. Peace, 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 peace. There is no peace. It's either the world carries on under subjugation of the West, or what's happening right now is people are trying to do their own thing and building systems so they don't need the West, which leaves the West kind of, so they can only resort. We all know this in the global South, us black and browns people, Asians, South Americans, everybody knows it. The West is going to do what it knows best: steal, kill, and destroy. They're trying to do it through means of investment and tech and all this. But it's going to end up with what they know best: stealing, killing, destroying, weapons, mass destruction, violence, tanks, bombs. You choose your scenario, because the most insane thing is thinking that nothing's going to happen.